right. First thing, any questions on roof so far? Everybody seems like they have a roof on their building and it looks really good. On your little garages you have roofs. That's good. Good. Okay. So was there anything on your garage that Paul was just saying you forgot to do foundations?
Yeah, there's a lot on it that's awesome.
I think the garage is good though because you kind of have to draw another drawing, right? So you hopefully somewhat remember drawing techniques maybe you forgot, right? From the beginning, anyway. All right. Well, let's do this. I'm going to draw a little garage out here, okay? So I'm going to click on my exterior wall. I'm going to not make mine as fancy as yours. Create similar. I'm just going to draw my garage, nice big garage. Everybody likes garages. Here we go. It looks like it's no. Oh, it's on. Am I in the basement? Yep. Of course.
That is a garage.
That's what you need is a basketball court underneath it.
We can put a basketball hoop underneath it.
Oh no.
She didn't say no basketball hoops underneath it.
Now you've given him an idea. There you go.
Inside his garage.
You know, if I give it enough slope, we can just do a basketball court upstairs.
Oh boy. That encourages noise and throwing of basketballs.
Yeah, but they're in the garage.
And nope, don't even.
Mom wants silence. She's got to send him through the rain because, you know, she had to carry the groceries through the rain. Send him through the rain to the garage.
Okay, I take that statement back. In the garage play is fine. That's great, actually.
In the garage is okay.
In fact, no, I'm kidding. I would never do that to my children.
I like it.
I know.
You end up on the news that way, but it sounds good.
Okay, here we go. I'd just be happy if they'd stay out of my bathroom. Okay, so I'm going to create just a regular old roof here. So I am on my main level here. I have top of wall. If I click on top of wall, I don't see my other little house right here, so I think I need to adjust my view range. Let's see, the top is roof, the bottom, let's go down below to main level. Apply. Oh, that didn't do it. I think it's actually my crop. Nope. It is. I was saying it is there, right? So I still can't see the visibility of my garage. Let me go back to view range. Did I leave it on the basement? I don't think so. Is it? I thought I changed it. Oh, nope, you're right. You guys are right. There you go. All right. Let's see. Oh, that's why. Okay, that's why. Never mind. Okay, top of wall. Base constraint will be main level. I may need to redraw this. There we go. Move it right up. Okay, there's my garage. So I'm going to come up to my top of wall here. Click, click. And I want to draw my roof for my garage. So I'm going to go to architecture. I'm going to go to roof. Click, right? And I'm going to just pick whatever roof type I want to use. So new roof. And I click on whatever drawing method I need. You know, I prefer to draw my roof shape, right? So I'm going to click on my little rectangle here. I'm going to give it an offset of, we'll do 3-foot eaves. We need some good sun shading happening. Click, click. Okay. All of these right now have a slope defined, right? And if I click on one of these lines, it tells me it's a 912. And if I hit finish and I go into a 3D mode, it's like a little mushroom, right? It's got
Pizza Hut in the backyard.
a little pizza hut. It's got a nice little roof on there, right? Now, if I want to edit that roof, right, I can click on it. I can hit edit footprint. And maybe I want this to not be a 912. Maybe I want it to be a 512, right? So I could hover, tab, click. I grab them all at the same time. You can also select them individually, right? I'm going to change this to a 512, enter. And I could hit finish. Okay.
Does it default to the 12 automatically? You just have to hit 5?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. kind of better, but not quite what we wanted to see, right? But when all of my roof lines in the sketch, whenever they're all set to define slope, we're going to get them all sloping up to a point, right? When they're all equally sloped and the walls are all the same, they're all going to slope up and create a little pyramid just like this. Okay, let me WT so that we can see these on. And it's cutting off right here, right? So what's happening here is this roof is extending up beyond the view range, and that's why it's cutting that little piece off, right? Oh, there we go. We'll do this. All right, so I still don't like it. Maybe I want to do a gable end roof, right? So I want this front face to be flat, the back face of the front of the roof to be flat. So let's change that. I'm going to click on this roof. I'm going to, oh, I double clicked. I forget about that. That's new in this, newish in the Revit world. But I can click on this line and I can come over here and undefine that slope. I can click over here and undefine that slope. And what that means is that this one will slope up and this one will slope up, and when they meet in the middle, they will stop sloping, right? So I'll get a ridge line. And what that means is this will not slope and this will not slope. I can hit finish and I get a little gable end, okay? I can click or hover over a wall, tab, click, attach top to base, click on the roof, and all those little walls go up and meet the roof, right? Really easy. Okay, so that is a roof by footprint. Okay, what happens when I need to intersect another roof into this roof, right? Like there's a dormer or, you know, another gable that's intersecting it, right? Let's talk about how we do that. I'm going to come back over here to my roof plan. I'm going to change my visuals or my view range. I want this to go, we'll do unlimited just for right now. Nope. Ooh, almost. There we go. You know, for example, we have a nice big gable that comes over here, you know, not typical maybe on a garage, but you'll see it on homes all the time, right? If I wanted to create another roof structure that intersected this one, I would just use the roof tool again to create that, okay? So I would go to roof by footprint, okay? And I would come in here and I would, let's see, I would click on my rectangle and I would sort of draw how I want it to look, right? I want my roof to start here. I want it to end there. It's going to meet the edge out here, right? And I don't want this or this to slope.
Oh, cool.
You had an epiphany. Paul, this is our space for epiphany right here.
This is now our space.
Okay, so this is going to slope up, that's going to slope up, these two will not slope up. I hit finish, right?
Oh my god, it's so easy.
I know, right? Well, it's not always that easy, right? So that looked pretty easy. But I do have to say one of my favorite things about Revit is creating roof plans in Revit because they can be so complicated, right? And so to be able to do this and to visually see them and get everything perfect is amazing. It does simplify the process a lot, right? Especially in complicated roofs, right? I can, yep.
Question. On your, once you make a roof and you want to edit the overhang, how would you edit your overhang?
So in this case, right, I've created a roof. I can hit edit footprint and I can't do it all at once. But if I wanted to, I could type DI dimension, or you can go to the dimension tool. I'm going to just dimension and look at that overhang, right? And then if I wanted to change it, I'd click on that and just alter it. So 5 foot, right? Or I could grab this and I could type MV move, click, and I can move it out 2 foot, enter. Did that work? Sorry. I looked over this way as I don't think it worked. Did it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll do it again. MV and 2 foot, enter. Okay, so that moves it out. So I can come in here and MV, move that out 2 more feet, enter, and we'll do the same thing on the back. MV, click, click, 2 foot, enter, and I've got the roof here. Okay, I can hit finish, and there is my roof right there, right? So I have this roof. If I click on it as a whole, I can also, if everything is sloping the same, I can come over here and change this. 312, right? If I don't like how that's working, I can click on that and take that down to 412. Maybe not. It's just a little guy, right? 6. Right, so visually I can look at it and change it. I can also look at it in elevation view, right? And I'm looking at this, here's my main roof on the garage. Here's this roof. If I click on it, you'll notice I have these grips, right? And I can drag it up and I can drag it down visually to get it to do whatever I want it to do, right? In this case, I'm trying to get it as close maybe to that ridge line as possible, right? What's nice about that is visually I can line it up with things, right? But what's not nice about that is that as I do that, it somewhat makes the slope not an even increment, right? So this says 6 and 121 over 128, right? Which is not ideal, but it's okay. All right. I can also do that with like my main roof right here, right? If I click on it and I'm in an elevation view or a section view, I can take this and I can drag it up just a little bit.
Oh yeah, I did that on accident.
Yeah, you got a kind of a wonky little slope.
My roof was like 30 feet up because I accidentally dragged it.
It's stylistic, right?
Very relieved. Grateful for the Control Z.
Yep.
Is it possible to slope the ridge itself?
Slope the ridge?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So your ridge right now is level, right?
It's flat.
Yeah. So what if you want one end of the ridge is
To like
higher
kink.
than the other? You do that.
You'd have to do 2 different roofs. Yeah, so if I understand, you're saying, well, I want this half to be one, and I maybe want this half to be a different height, right? So you're popping one up. Is that what you're saying? Let me show you. This is what I'm thinking you're saying. I'm going to hit edit footprint. I'm going to maybe move this down to here, right? Hit finish. And I've got that piece of roof there, right? And then I can come into roof and click on roof by footprint, and I can do the exact same thing. Oop. AL, align, click, click. We'll make these 2 not sloping. And the others, let's hit finish. Right, so if I wanted that to be a different kind of height, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so what if you do that in a straight line then? So one ridge is higher than the other, but if you want to do it like on an angle, you know?
He's saying the ridge is parallel to the ground, it's horizontal, so.
Right.
The ridge is parallel to the
So
ground.
if you have 2 gables and you were just to lift one gable up, now your ridge line.
Oh, slopes from. That's tricky. That's tricky.
No, I don't want to get sidetracked.
That's next semester.
I'm trying to think if I've ever actually.
That sounds pretty.
Where does that
sounds
happen
pretty
in real
awesome.
life? Where the ridgeline slopes back like that.
It does on hips, but not on gable to gable like.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've. Nope, not that I've seen. I think what you'd have to do in that case is create maybe like a roof with an extrusion. We'll talk about that. Maybe a path.
So is that what you're going to do to trim those 2 to each other? That little dormer that you made, you got to trim them to each other, right? So
Right. We're going to make a hole in the roof actually to do that. Yes, let me undo this, what I've just done. Yep. Okay, so I have my roof here, right? And as you're seeing, you're looking at it thinking, well, that's all well and good, right? Except that we've kind of got this in here, right? So we need to, maybe I guess a good term is to trim one piece to the other, right? So I'm going to grab this and just kind of bring it out. So there's 2 things I want to show you here, right? And this kind of goes back to maybe some of my original comments with Revit. And that is, usually when I'm working with Revit, I get my elements generally where they need to be. I create them and then I revise them to what they actually need to be, right? So when you see me creating a roof, right, the first time I created this, I brought this line on the rear of that roof all the way back to here so that it would touch that ridge line, right? In this case, I stopped it. So when I look at it in 3D like this, it comes somewhat back, but it doesn't really meet that ridge line, right? And the reason I did that is so that I could join these 2 roofs together and I could see the back edge of this roof. And then once I join them, they're essentially becoming one roof, right? But I did this so that I could see this ridge line or this area back here to then join it, which would have been more difficult if this had actually been drawn all the way back to the ridge line. It would be more difficult for me to perform the operation I'm going to show you. If we go to modify and you come all the way over here, we have a join and unjoin roof. So let me show you what this does, right? It does that, right? Nice. So takes one roof and it joins it to the next, which is different, right? You were probably thinking, well, it's kind of somewhat what it looked like before you started messing around with it, right? Because I had this and I had this coming all the way out to here, right? And I finished it and it somewhat looked like that. But the way that this roof is functioning right now, if I were to look at it in a section box, a section, you know, which if I click on this little section region right here, right? If I were to look at that and drag this in, these two roofs are not joined to each other. So if I go to the interior, I have this big chunk of roof that is kind of hanging out inside of my house, right?
Okay.
Which all the activities you could do. Sometimes it doesn't matter, right? Sometimes that doesn't matter in the whole scheme of Revit. That doesn't matter because maybe it's a truss system where that's above the truss line inside. It's hanging out in the attic and you just never see it and it doesn't matter, right? So you don't have to fix it, okay? You should anyway, but you know, it's tempting not to. Aaron's looking at me like, bad.
So you really want to join these anytime you have one of those poking out.
You want to join them together?
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Just to eliminate that part.
So you want to eliminate that part. You want them to be one roof. But another thing that you may end up doing as well is, you know, you may want to have this little dormer roof showing on the inside of the house for whatever reason, right? So you want to see that roof structure on the inside. Maybe it's a vaulted ceiling or something, right? So you want to trim these pieces off so they're nice and neat. But then you also want to cut a hole in the roof so that if you want to see the shape of the underside of the ceiling, you can, okay? So let's do that. I'm going to look at this right here. And I'm going to, I'm actually going to open up another 3D view. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, we'll just get rid of the section region then. There we go. Okay, so that's the reason why I kind of take these and I sort of bring them back so that I can perform the operation I'm just about to show you and I can see everything. Okay. The way you're going to notice also that when I do a roof join, I'm generally in a 3D view, right? So I can see the kind of main roof, right, which is this. I can see the smaller dormer roof and I can kind of see what I'm doing. I come up to modify and I go over to join roof. And let me just show you, so it does that, right? This is another one of those weird kind of operations that I feel like when you perform it, it's kind of weird. Like the actual, you know, process through it is somewhat funny, the way that you select the items. But I'll just show you. So I'm going to click on join or unjoin roof. And down here at the bottom, it says select an edge at the end of the roof that you wish to join. Okay. You know, and for me, so it wants me to select an edge. It's a little bit funny to me. I kind of feel like it should ask me to select the face, right? Like this area right here wants to join onto this area of the roof, but it doesn't ask you for that. It asks you for an edge, okay? All right, well, I'm going to click on that edge. Click. Select the face of another roof or wall to which you want to join the first roof. Okay, well, now I get to select the face, right? So it's a little bit weird, I feel like. Okay, so I'm going to select the face of this roof. Okay, if I just click in the sort of field of the roof, it doesn't work. I actually have to kind of hover near the boundary, click, and it extends that roof out. Okay, it's because it was too tall. Yeah, so it kind of trimmed it at the same time that it did that. Okay, so nice and neat, right? And the best part about that is that when those two things join together, right, it trimmed those pieces off on the inside, right? So we still have this main roof right there, but all of those weird tails, they somewhat trimmed off, right? Nice, lovely little roof. Okay, make sense to everybody?
So it's always going to trim the one that you select first, right?
Yes.
And like the second one is the tool.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
And what if you don't want to see see the roof right there on the inside.
Yes.
Just go make a wall in there and offset it there.
We're gonna cut a hole in the roof, and then we're gonna extend the wall up to that roof. Yeah. Before we do that though, let me just run through that again. Let me create another little dormer maybe on the other side. And let's do that same thing again. So I'm gonna go to roof, right? And I want to create another little dormer over here. So I click on architecture, roof by footprint, and I'm just going to draw another little rectangle, make it more narrow, weird. I'll extend it out past, right? I'm going to treat this just like any other gable end roof, right? So this edge will slope, this edge will slope, but this one and this one will not. So I'm going to undefine those. I don't really want a 912 on these, so I'll make that like a 612. Okay, if I wanted to, I could change and select a different roofing type. Let's choose like an 8-inch wood rafter. Hit finish, and there is my other roof. Now that one, where did I create that one? That one is taller. It was created at roof, so I need to bring that down to top of wall. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's been a day. I feel like today's been really a long day. Paul knows, because Paul T. Habitat has been going on, and we went up to the U for design reviews today. It's been a busy day. It's very emotionally taxing, I feel like. The design reviews. Okay. So we have our roof here, right? And I'm going to go into my 3D mode. Again, see, now maybe do you see the reason why I want to pull the roof back and not engage that other roof? Because now when I want to go to join these, it's going to ask me to select the face of that back side of that roof. And I'm like, oh, well, where is it? Wireframe. Okay, I can kind of see it. But, right? Wireframe just is, this is not super complicated, right? But it somewhat is. This is a lot more complicated, so you're like, what edge am I looking for? Which is why when I create these roofs, right, I don't bring them that far back. Finish. Oh, and I even just got a tiny bit. Okay, so now I'm going to go to modify again. I'm going to click on join my roofs. Click. I'm going to click that first edge, and I can just barely see a tiny bit, but that's enough, right? Click, and I click on the face of this roof. Click. And it goes back and joins. And this is somewhat like the wall joining the roof. You can attach or detach roofs, right? So if I wanted to go back here and I can click on, you see it says join or unjoin. Click on edge of the roof that you wish to unjoin, and it unjoins it. I'm gonna undo that. Okay, so when you're creating, when you have dormers or you have, gable end, I guess there's still dormers on the front of houses where you have like maybe multiple big ones or whatever, right? Or, anything like that, this is how you will do that, okay? Let's talk about cutting out that other little piece of roof in there, right? We don't want the main roof to be showing in here, right? We want our wall to extend up and to attach to that roof and look nice and neat. So let's talk about cutting holes in roofs. I'm going to go to my roofing level here. Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. So this is not terribly hard to do, but it's a process. And if you don't do the process correctly, it doesn't work. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that I want you to understand that we have thicknesses with roofs involved here, right? So maybe this roof is like 12 inches thick, right? And this one is 12 inches thick or whatever, right? But the assembly of that roof with the wood framing or whatever type of framing or truss or whatever has a thickness associated with it, right? So that's one thing I want to point out, okay? I want to point out that this roof right here, I want to ideally cut off, a swath inside and be right about there. So I want to cut along the inside edge of this roof that's on top of this roof, right? And I want to do that because I want to have this roof, this is really complicated to say, I want this roof to have enough roof surface to touch this roof, and the thicknesses kind of meet, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but it's almost like, this is probably gonna be a terrible picture. You have this roof like this, and it comes down, and then where it would meet the other roof, you want it to cut and then kind of like meet the other roof, but have like a surface for those two to kind of meet together, right? As opposed to like leaving a gap and not having the roof have anything here to touch. It's complicated to say, but when I show you what I mean, I'm hoping it'll make more sense. Okay, so the way I'm going to cut a hole in this roof, I'm going to go back to my roof plan, and I am going to go to cut geometry. Okay, let's see if it, no, this is, nope, I lied, sorry, I lied. That's not what I want to do. I want to cut a vertical hole opening. And I'm going to, yeah, I'm going to do it this way. So this will allow me to cut a vertical opening through a roof, a floor, or a ceiling. Here we go, it's on, right? Your ceiling? Your ceiling? You don't need to cut a hole through it, you just need to leave an opening.
Oh, for the stairs?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
To make an outline of it.
So you're gonna, leave an outline. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna click on my vertical opening. That's on, did somebody have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. So under the architecture tab, all the way over here to vertical opening, okay, I'm gonna click on that. And it's going to say, select a floor, roof, or ceiling, or soffit to create an opening in. Okay, I wanna create an opening in this roof, click. And it's like, okay, great. You want to cut an opening in it. Where would you like to cut the opening? Okay. Essentially, this is how it's going to function. I'm going to click on pick lines. I want to cut an opening on this boundary, right? But in actuality, what I want to do is I want to offset this in 12 inches to leave a 12-inch area for my roof to come in and meet the other roof. So I'm going to click this and I'm going to choose an offset of whatever thickness my roof is.
That's 12 feet,
That's a lot. What am I doing? 1 foot, there we go. So I'm in actuality, and I do it this way, even though I somewhat have to go back and delete a couple lines, right? So I'm creating my roof cut, you know, whatever thickness the roof is inside where those valleys hit. Okay, I'm going to trim TR, click, click. Oh, actually, I need to offset this 12 inches too. So pick 1 foot, TR, trim, click, 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 click. And that's essentially the size of my opening. Okay, I hit finish. Nothing appears to have happened, but when I go into my 3D view, I can see that it has cut that roof out.
So how does it know to come down this far into the wall itself too?
Well, it's not really coming down into the wall. The wall was just never, the wall has lost its attachment to the roof at that point. So the top constraint of that roof is just whatever it was before it attached to the roof. Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
Yeah, the top of the roof, or the top of the wall. Yeah, so the wall would like attach to the roof, it would boop, bump up, but when it's cut out, it just goes back to its original constraint. Yeah. So now I'm going to click on this wall and I'm going to hit attach top to base, and I'm going to click on this roof right there, and it bumps up and attaches to it. Now this one looks like I could have actually gone in a little bit more as far as cutting it, but I think, you know, when put something there, yeah. So this looks a little bit like some trim. I know. Let's put some stucco there. So this one looks like it could have come in a little bit more. I wonder if these two things are these the same roof? New roof. New. They are the same roof. Okay. Let's cut it. I'm going to cut it again. Maybe this one didn't seem to join that well. So I think I need to take a little bit more off of the cut.
Haircut.
So here. What's that?
A little haircut.
A little haircut, yes. This is the not tricky but tricky part. I'm going to tab. Oop. Where's my cut? I'm gonna hide this real quick. Hide element. Okay. When I click that edge, I'm actually selecting the cut line. I know it's kind of funny. It doesn't, unless you were actually very clearly showed that, you would never guess that, right? But this is the cut line. I can hit edit sketch. I'm gonna do 12 inches. Now I know I told you to offset it in 12 inches, but maybe they've improved. That was last version. Maybe they've improved it so that it actually just joins where it needs to. The dormer tool, it's a little bit, I feel like the dormer cut is a little bit more complicated. I feel like it doesn't always work. And so that's why I choose just the vertical cut instead, because it always works. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna trim that out, Oop. TR, trim, click, 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 click. We'll get rid of a few of these things and hit finish. Now I'm going to turn my other roof back on, and you remember that when I click on the sunglasses, right, that is a temporary hide isolate. So if I reset it, it brings my other roof back. Ah, it undid my join. It said, hey, you were cutting this. I don't like what's happening, right? So it unjoined it. So I have to go back and rejoin this again. So I go to modify, join roof, click, click. Oh, there it is. See, it's erroring now because too much of it's been cut out and it won't join. There you go. So there still is an issue. Anyway. But you guys get this. So now when it goes back to join, there's nothing to join, right? So there's no meat for it to connect to of that roof. And so the problem is not solved, right? So maybe what I could have done is instead of offsetting in 12 inches, maybe I could have just offset in 6 inches, right? So that this roof right here was obscured by the thickness of this roof. But then that would have allowed a little bit of exposure for this roof to connect back there. Let me undo and go back to that so we can look at it again. Right, so our opening was like this, right? I click on it, I hit edit sketch, and instead of offsetting it the full 12 inches, I want to offset it in 6 inches. I'm glad that happened, right? There's one error that I was able to make happen. Okay, click, click, trim. Delete. That looks a little bit better. Finish. And I think I was successful because I didn't get that same error that said, hey, your roof is detached, right? It's still attached. Looks pretty good, right? And I just have a tiny little sliver that maybe doesn't look quite right, but everything else is working pretty well, right? So looks pretty good. Let's look at what that opening would look like if I just cut a regular old hole in the roof, right? I go to architecture, I go to vertical opening, and I just click on the element I want to make the, oop. Hey, wait a minute. Vertical opening, click. I cut my opening, and it can be any shape, right? Whatever you want it to be. Hit finish, and there's the opening of my roof. What's that? Yeah, skylights.
Skylight for the hot dog.
Well, but that was something we maybe won't do, but I was going to talk about elements you can host to ceilings, right? You can, or to roofs, you can host skylights to a roof. So it's like a window, but the element is specifically defined to host to a roof. So you can go to Revit City and you can download those. Yep, there you go. A little love shack in there, right? Okay.
We've already got vending machines. It's pretty comfortable.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. All right. So the reason I like to actually bring up creating a hole in the roof is because we obviously have a couple of different types of holes we can cut, right? You can cut openings on faces. You have a lot of openings anyway. But one thing I specifically wanted to talk about was a shaft opening, okay? So I think the natural inclination is that when you are I'll talk about a commercial project, right? When you're creating a commercial project and or even residential, whatever, you're thinking about stairs, you're thinking about vertical circulation, right? You're thinking about elevators and how we're gonna like kind of accommodating these things, right? In a home like this, it's really easy to create openings in the floor, right? So when you're creating your floor, you just trace around where you want the opening to occur, and the opening is inherently in the actual floor system, right? We're not creating a floor with no holes in it and then adding a hole, just like we did here, right? We're just leaving out a piece of the floor, essentially. The same thing with ceilings. When we get to ceilings, you'll just leave a portion out of the ceiling that you draw as opposed to creating a hole in the ceiling, okay? So in a small project like this, that's pretty easy, right? You just leave a piece of the object out. In like a multi-story building where you have 5 or 6 different levels where you need to draw an elevator or a stair corridor, right? A stair shaft going up. You can leave holes in the floors. It's great. You can cut holes in the floors to accommodate those going up several levels, right? But the inherent problem with that is that, and it's a problem on both ends in that, you know, things like elevators, they should line up from floor to floor because they're traveling in the exact same spot from floor to floor, right? But the inherent problem with that is floor plates change, things move around in your drawings, and the floor openings that you left somewhat shift every now and again, right? And you're constantly chasing that opening that you drew around your drawing, making sure it's correct on all the different levels, right? So when you have something multi-story, you don't want to cut holes, you don't want to leave a piece of the floor out. What you actually want to do is create a shaft opening, okay? What's really nice about a shaft opening, let me just, okay, let's just start creating buildings all over the place here, right? Okay, and we are going to, let's do a floor in our garage here real quick. This one over here, I'm going to go to main level, I'm going to create a floor, real quick like, maybe. Okay, it's going to be just the tile, maybe we'll change it not to a 6x6, but I'm just going to create a floor and I'm not going to create any openings in it, right? We're going to change this to a, there we go, 12-inch one. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to look at my sectional view of this. Okay, and there's the floor. I'm going to copy this up a few times and it won't make any sense, right? And we won't be able to see them because they're being cropped out likely. Right, but there's our multi-story building. Okay, so if I were to create holes for my elevator to go through this, right, holes in the roof, I'd have to coordinate them from level to level. And if somebody moved it, you've got like 10 people working in a model when you're working in an office, right? And you're not always paying attention to the same things, right? They may accidentally, in maybe editing the floor in some other instance, move your floor opening or do weird things happen all the time. Anyway, so let's talk about shaft openings, okay? I'm going to close this out, go to main level, window tile, WT, and I'm going to create a shaft opening for this multi-story house that we have here, okay? I have the shaft opening tool here, okay? I'm going to click on it. And the shaft opening actually has constraints associated with it because a shaft opening is different from openings in floors or leaving out a piece of your floor in that it's an object, okay? And it's considered it's a void, like it's a 3D void, right? So those of you maybe that have used 3D AutoCAD, you can create extrusions and you can create voids. And this is a void, and a void is an object, right? A void is an object that obscures solid objects that gets in its path, essentially. And so this void will have constraints. It'll go from the main level, all the way up, let's make it like 50 feet. Okay, I'm gonna hit apply, and then I'm gonna draw where I want that to happen. Okay, and you notice it gets drawn down here. I hit finish, right? And it creates an opening system all the way through those levels in the same place. It's an element, so I can drag it up, I can drag it down, and I can also change the constraints over here. Okay. And you're probably thinking, well, gosh, that's really nice. Like, why don't I just do shafts everywhere, right? And the reasoning why you don't create these shaft openings everywhere is because they are an object, right? So in a simple project, this is actually a hindrance. It's another object that gets in the way, that can be printed sometimes, that if you move furniture or move something small, it could interfere with this and move this, right? And then because it's in a small project and it's not going from level to level, there may not be something that indicates that it's even moved 6 or 7 inches, right? And then something else is, the whole system is thrown off, right? So shaft openings are really great for multi-story type buildings where, you know, you have to have that same opening from level to level, but it's not so great in small scale projects. Okay, small scale projects you can just leave pieces of the floor out or create the openings like we just did, okay? But that sure is easy, right? Sure makes it nice when you're creating an elevator, have it in the same place.
But you did some for the stairs, yeah?
No, well you could, well, again.
More buildings, yeah, like more.
Yeah. Yeah, for the stairs, for the shaft of the stairs, yeah. But the thing about a stairway, well, and I guess an elevator to a certain extent, is that you have to usually have it, it's usually rated, right? A fire rating. And so you have to have walls that go from main level all the way up and enclose it.
Yeah.
So those walls somewhat define like a stair shaft, right? For the rating, so. Okay, any questions about any of this so far? No? I feel like we need to have, maybe not today, but I feel like we need to have like a roof test. Because
That's a messed up thing to say.
I know, right? I'm not maybe I shouldn't say this out loud. I don't really believe in tests a lot. I don't like them. I don't really think they're applicable to everyday life, right? Where is there never a time you can't go grab the code book off of the shelf and like look an answer up, right?
Or have another person help you.
Right.
As an architecture, you're a group.
We are, that's exactly it. Right, amen, right? Anyway.
Test, I want
So-
that. Yeah, if we do a test, we do it as a group.
Yes, I don't mind that, right? When I do have tests, they're always open book, right? But I think roofs are one of those things where they can be a little tricky, right? And so maybe after you do an assignment with another roof, maybe I'll have another assignment with a roof and have you do a different type of roof, right? Because we were kind of, you were given this project and you are creating the roof like this, right? But I think this is one of those things where you need to create like a gable end roof or a hip roof or something to that effect. So that might pop up. Let me just say that. Okay, let's see. One more type of roof. Let's talk about a roof by extrusion, right? These roofs are all by footprint. And what roofs by footprint mean, what that means is that you go into a view or a level where you can see a flat plan view and you draw the roof, the footprint of the roof, right? But there are going to be times where maybe you have more of a complicated roof that you can't achieve it with a footprint view, right? And so you need to be able to draw it in a different way, right? Achieve different roofs in different ways. So we have roof by footprint. I'm going to go into this view. We're going to leave all this other garbage in the background. I should just say do not crop. There we go. Okay. So roof by footprint, and I love these little, we're just going to do this one. Let's see if it gives us a little, there we go. Right? Yep. So this will allow you to draw kind of a profile sketch of what you want your roof to look like, and then it extrudes it back from where you draw. Okay. So there are a couple things you need to understand about that. And this will come up every now and again in Revit, but you need to understand the idea of a work plane, right? So a work plane establishes a point where you start something, right? Or we have reference planes that establish different points to draw from, right? But essentially, if you were running into this the other day, I'm going to pop into 3D here. I'm going to click on Show Work Plane. Okay. So when I click on show work plane, this work plane shows up. And this work plane, right, where is this work plane sitting? It looks like it's sitting at the basement level, right? So at some point or another, I've established a work plane at the basement level, right? And it's just essentially like, if I wanted to, say, draw a roof, a work plane just establishes where it starts. So this work plane starts at the basement level, okay? And I think the main reason that you need a work plane in order to draw a roof by extrusion is so that it remains planar. It's kind of something that happens in AutoCAD a lot. Not a lot. I look at you because you know what I'm talking about, right? You maybe draw something and it looks like this. And you're like, oh, it's great. I'm just going to draw that, right? And then you flip your view a little bit and it looks like that, right? In 3D. And you're like, no, I didn't draw that. I drew this nice continuous line, right? And what happens when you see something like this is that essentially like this point was here, but this point was 50 feet back, and this point was 70 feet in front. And this point skewed all the way back in here into infinity, and this point was 30 feet in front of everything, right? So you essentially drew it without knowing it in 3 dimensions, so it wasn't flat, okay? And so when you flipped into 3D, it looked like that, okay? So in AutoCAD, all the time, right, till you figure it out. There's ways to work around it in AutoCAD too, but I think that's why, well, I know that's why we're doing this in Revit. So we have a work plane so that it establishes a datum that we start with. We start with a flat line and we extrude our roofs back behind that, okay? So if I'm, for example, want to create a roof by extrusion, let me just show you what happens when I click on it. Roof by extrusion. It says, hey, where's the work plane where you want to start drawing this, okay? And you sometimes can pick a plane. So if I click pick a plane and I hit OK, I could say, oh, I want to draw it so it's in plane with this. Click. And it's like, okay, I hit OK. And then it establishes my plane right there, right? You guys see that? All right. But, you know, if I draw it right now, it's a little bit hard. Really, for good practice, you should be kind of in a flat, like an elevation view to draw it, right? This was one instance where it worked and it usually doesn't, like this. Okay. But normally what will happen is you will establish a plane, a work plane, where you want it to start, and then when it says, hey, what work plane do you want to draw this on, you select the one that you created, essentially. So I'm going to go to my main level, and I'm going to establish a work plane. And I'm going to do it by using my reference plane system. So I'm going to type RP, and reference planes are another sort of work plane, right? So I'm going to click, and I'm going to put it wherever I want my roofs to start. And when I click on it, I can give it a name. Click again, roof system, right? There's always been a rule at the several places I've worked that if you name a work plane or a reference plane, then it stays in the drawing. If you don't name it, it's free game to delete, right? Because these aren't really elements that necessarily are important to the drawing, right? Unless you name them, right? So this establishes my roofing system. Did I name that? But if I were to, for example, come in here and just want to, you know, RP and maybe say, oh, I wonder how far this wall is off here, or maybe I need to line it up with this, right? This maybe is just for measurement. I put it in there to see something, but I don't really need it for anything, right? So the rule is if you click on this and there's no name, I can delete it, right? If I click on this and it calls it, you know, roof system, wait a minute, somebody thought that was important enough to give it a name. All right, I'm gonna go into an elevation view. Right, I can't see the reference plane in elevation view, but when I click on roof by extrusion, it says, hey, where would you like to start drawing this? I can say roof system, okay, and immediately it's asked me what level I want to put it on. Let's do top of wall again, okay, and I'm ready to draw, right? Every single time I do anything with this type of like workflow, I always forget to create the reference plane, and I'm always super lazy and don't want to hit escape and draw the reference plane, and so I try and wing it and it never works. And so I always end up hitting escape, going back, drawing the reference plane in, and then going forward, right? So So that's my lesson. Then I'm going to draw a profile of what I want my roof to look like. Okay, so just like that little illustration showed, right? I could come in here and I could draw something. Let's do it over here. My design concept is the mountains. Right, so I could draw, hopefully this isn't too complicated. I don't think it should be, but there is what I want my roof to look like, right? And I have this 8-inch, this roof attached to it. I'm going to change it to generic 12-inch. And what that means is that this extrusion that extrudes back will have this attached underneath it, right? So that roof will assume that shape. Okay. All right. So now,
It looks like the canopy of that design.
it totally does. Oh, I was gonna say, there's usually, okay, so we have an extrusion start and an extrusion end. The start is measured from the reference plane, so that's point 0, right? The extrusion end is either positive or negative in front of or behind that start point. So maybe we'll say 30 feet. I'm gonna hit apply, I'm gonna hit finish, and it created my roof, right? So I go into 3D, look at that magic, right? I have to show you guys this project. I wonder if anybody's been there. Somebody always makes that comment. There's this magical steel bending machine that you give them your CAD file, and they have the steel fabricated from they roll it and they fabricate it right in their shop with your CAD file so that it arrives on site with these perfect rolls in it and is ready to install. That's how you do it. Right? And I know that because, let me show you a project I worked on. Let's see if I can get that roof. Where is it? Hold on. Okay, that's what we want right there. Ooh, a bunch of pictures of Trump popped up when I typed into my visitor center. Let's see. Government? Maybe government? There it is. Okay. So we worked, this is when I was at AJC Architects, obviously, but we worked on this project. This was National Park Service project. Has anybody been here? No?
What kind of hippie put that together?
This was like a $24 million project. The government gave it $24 million for it.
Did you tell them it would have only been 12 if they just put a regular roof on the place?
Like, I'll only charge you $12 million for it. I'll give you a deal, right? This is a LEED Platinum building though, so, and I think they're actually trying to go net zero, so it's got a lot of expensive systems in there. But yeah, so this is, right, so you can just you just give them the CAD file of the roof structure and how it's supposed to look, and they will fabricate your steel. They'll roll it and it arrives on site. They weld it all together. It's magical.
Terrifying.
This is an interesting project. The funny thing was it's supposed to align with this mountain, so there's a central point here, and then you walk in the main entry right here in the, I think they call it the orientation plaza, if I remember right. And there's no photos of it here, but you walk into this area, and there's this central point, and they have these axes running, this is funny, they have these axes running through it that are supposed to exactly line up with the topography, and I think it's actually this mountain back here. There's a specific angle, right, they wanted this building to be oriented on. We got all the way through the process, and right before our drawings went out, somebody was like, did we verify that it actually was at 22.93 degrees? It was actually rotated where it should have been.
You use that method as your design concept?
It was part of it. Yeah, it was part of it. There was a lot to it. It's a Native American building, essentially, and there was a lot having to do with Native American foods and orientations and directions of the wind, and it was really, it was comprehensive, I'll say that. There was a lot to it. So that is where you would, you know, use this potentially to design your roofing system, okay? But let me do that one more time. The steps for creating a roof with an extrusion: you have to set a work plane or a reference plane, right? You have to draw the profile of the extrusion, pick the roof you want, and then decide how far it's going to extrude, right? So let me delete that one out. I'm going to go back to, here we go. Okay.
Can't we do it on the top of the roof? Should we make it and bring it back on the top of the roof?
What do you mean on top of the roof?
Like we made it over here.
Oh, how do we move it over? Let me show you that. I'll show you. It's easy. So I've already created my reference plane, right? It's called the roof one, whatever I called it. So I'm going to choose roof by extrusion, and I'm going to choose my work plane, roof system. Okay. I want this to go to top of wall. Okay. I'm going to draw my profile. So maybe it's just, there you go. Me and my good old nemesis, the Ark. I'm not joking.
No, she's one of your AutoCAD students. She's like, she hates the arc. I know.
You're like, yeah, I know. Trust me, I heard it all semester too. I've had several people validate that concern, FYI. It's unpredictable. So I'm tempted to say, I'm hoping that because this is separate segments, it'll still work. But I've got my basic roof. I've got my extrusion start, my extrusion end. Let's make it 50 feet. Apply, I hit finish, and there we go. Okay, so now I have this 3D roofing object, right? How do I...
So goofy.
I can now move it, right? It's just a roof, right? It's just another piece of geometry.
Moving, yeah.
Yeah, so I can go to roof, and I'm going to uncrop my... Let's see. Where was it? I think I have it. Did I have it at top of wall? Where did I have it?
Yeah, top of the wall.
It's odd. It's off. Oh, it's really far off. Okay. See how it's missing.
I don't think it's there.
Huh.
Sorry, boss, I lost a roof.
Like I'm really sorry.
So big. It goes for
Kinda
about
waving.
50. It goes for about 50 feet though when you come across it.
It's got a wave in it. Let's see. Huh. Okay. Oh, geez. Okay.
Oh,
This is the AutoCAD problem. See, this is what happens when I mess around, right? Let me go to my main level.
That's awesome.
There it is.
what?
But now the problem, see, the way that I'm gonna have to remedy this is I'm gonna have to go through all of these different elevations and find it.
So this should not be on our test.
There you go. I mean, it appears, let's see again. It appears as if it's okay now, right? Okay, it does somewhat look like it's where it's supposed to be, right? So let's go back to our roof level. Where is it?
Every test question, you just respond with,
I don't know
was
where
pretty
it
messed-
is.
I was pretty messed up after you lost that roof.
Oh boy.
this is why you don't design weird hippie roofs.
Let's cut a section through it. Here's my,
Put
well,
a
you're,
roof on it like it's supposed to be.
let's do this. Let's,
It's so interesting.
Constraints of the roof are not where they need to be.
yeah, let me look at it
I
again
think
here.
on the plane it's showing like too high. It might be like
Do you think it's too, it doesn't, but I look here and it doesn't look as if it's that high though, right?
But is it above the,
Let's drag it down. I mean, in,
Right inside the house.
right, in
Yeah.
theory it's touching
Yeah.
the house. Let's change the roofing type. I might, okay, that's okay. Room best. Okay. There it is.
that was high, I think.
That's weird. Okay, so there's a roof. But it's just like any other piece of geometry if you can find it. You can just kind of move it over, right? Put it right there, and then there it is. If I wanted to, I could grab these walls and I could choose attach top to base, click on the roof, and it will go in there and infill it the way it should.
Ooh,
Even.
kooky.
Right? We'll undo that one. Okay. Any questions so far?
Oh, dozens.
Okay. Well, that's kind of where I wanted to get for tonight. Let me see. Let me make sure there's nothing else. So,
I have lots of
That looked as
questions.
easy
You have a lot
as
of
throwing
questions?
dinner
Okay.
in the-
No, just one
in the
question
washing
about,
machine.
can we do site
hitting a button.
plans in the elevator or no?
yeah, we're going to get there.
We can come up with.
Yep, we're going to get there. They're so easy.
Oh, good.
They're really easy.
Yeah, then
Oh, they're so easy.
then it receive me times all homework.
So we've
Okay.
Oh, is that
got some more features thrown in the house for you.
So finish up your roofs. I will likely, I haven't done it tonight,